What's up guys, this is Darkbblue, a gamer who loves Souls-like games, looter games, and every game that involves build making. So it's a shame my last dot build was nerfed at day 2 after DLC release. It should have been a very interesting build, but never mind, cause I've come up with a brand new dot build. This time, it'll be even better. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's dive right into it. So here I just post my entire gear list at the beginning in case you won't be able to find it later. And now let me start with an overview. After effortless attempts, I have come to a conclusion. If you don't take the current bug that dot duration doesn't affect total dot damage, it's impossible to make the dot DPS not squishy. I have tried very hard but still struggle to push it over 1000. But at the same time, simply spamming Firestorm and Enigma can get you to 3000 DPS while having many survival gears. As a result, we have to pursue other usage of dots other than plain DPS. And my current answer is threefold. Energized Night Coil, dot as a debuff, and non-damaging status effects. First, let's talk about Energized Night Coil. It converts some of your total dot damage into a sudden burst. A sudden burst must be very short in time, so the DPS naturally gets higher. But its total damage is very restricted and struggles to kill enemies with more health. Therefore, this is good but also only good for killing mobs. Then we have dot as a debuff. With the new DLC, we've got many new gears that grant you bonus based on how many dots are inflicted upon a certain enemy. Although dots themselves won't be able to do much damage, we can inflict many dots and do bonused plain damage. I've run a little test over how these gears work and here are my results. Maelstrom has the most strict rule. It only counts elemental dots, so bleeding doesn't count, and it doesn't recognize multiple stacks of the same dot. So this basically means that Maelstrom is capped at 60% bonus. A honey recognizes all status effects beyond elemental dots including slow or stasis, but multiple stacks of the same effect still counts as one. And Misfortune counts every effect and every stack, so it's the most generous one. These results will later guide us to make detailed gear decisions, but for now, the takeaway is that dot as a debuff is very valuable. However, it's better against elites and bosses, but might be too much for killing a mob. And finally, non-damaging status effects. I feel this might be overlooked by many players, but it's in fact very useful. For example, the stasis beam mod can initially keep a target in stasis for 10 seconds, which is, well, not very impressive, but with full dot duration stacked, it's extended to 30 seconds, half a minute. This is huge and makes elites almost nothing. Sadly, it doesn't work on bosses, by which I mean any enemy with a long health bar at the top of your screen. With all the three aspects being covered, now I want my new build to have all of them. Next, let me show you how I have achieved it with specific gears. First, Energized Night Coil, but what's more, I personally have full dot duration. With a future patch to fix this bug, well, this will increase the total damage of dot. And even currently, it at least doesn't make things worse, right? Furthermore, there is a very unintuitive decision. Don't use Ritualist. On one hand, its damage perk is only triggered when an enemy is inflicted with dot, which is already too late for the dot burst of Energized Night Coil. On the other, the infection effect of Prime perk cannot trigger explosion, but will make Energized Night Coil start cooldown. So it's ridiculous in summary, so anyway, don't use Ritualist. And I replace Ritualist with Challenger and use Twisted Wound on Tech 22 to trigger the dot explosion. Then dot debuff. I use both Maelstrom and Ahani to deal plain damage with Sparkfire. According to my previous test results, we need different types of dots instead of many stacks of the same dot. We have Overload on the Axe and a Corrosive Malamutator, then we have to use Twisted Wound on Tech 22 as this is the only source of bleeding in this build. In the end, Sparkfire can inflict burning, and that's all the 4 dots. One more thing to clarify, Ritualist Skill 2 is meaningless. As shown now, it provides 0 damage bonus to Sparkfire because we already have all the 4 types of dots. This is another reason why I gave up Ritualist. Next, we have Slow and Stasis. I equipped the Stasis Beam mod on my Tech 22. It charges fairly fast, so I don't need Malevolence nor Burden of Law Follower. By the way, Sparkfire with Maelstrom also charges fast, so this whole build doesn't require mod power gears. The Stasis Beam is originally used against elites. With 2 seconds attack, they will be locked for 30 seconds, but I find some more flexible usage against mobs. For example, if you want to do something complicated such as a headshot with Sparkfire or a throwing axe hit, just give the mob one quick shot of Stasis Beam, and this shot slow effect will make everything much easier. So there is one last option left free, the mod on Sparkfire. You can choose from Corrosive Rounds and Son of Ether. The former gives you higher DPS while the latter gives you better survival. Both are good against elites and bosses. The overall rotation is like this. Against mobs, you start with a weak spot or crit shot of Tech 22 to trigger explosion and end up with Sparkfire killing shots. And when you see an elite, first lock them for 30 seconds, then you can do anything you like. In summary, this style build has very strong overall capability. It can do well in many aspects, but relatively, it's still better against not very many enemies at a rather long distance, compared with mod builds which are better at handling large crowds of enemies within close range. Before bug fix, dot explosion is hard to one-tap mobs, so you have to rely on the plain damage of Sparkfire, which restricts your ideal combat zone to closer range, but this will hopefully be fixed in the future. Then if we turn to the dimension of enemy types, this build is especially specialized at mobs and elites, while bosses are harder to deal with. If you encounter a mini-boss or aberration during exploration, this build can at least work to some extent, but for a dedicated boss fight, please consider other builds. In the end, I want to say, although I am currently satisfied with this build, it can benefit from a fix of so many bugs in the current patch. I hope the update can come soon. If you like my story or want to join me into depth of games, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, see you around.